Welcome. Our scriptures today are first from the book of Proverbs, chapter 11. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. The Lord detests those whose hearts are perverse, but he delights in those whose ways are blameless. And from James chapter 3, beginning at verse 13. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You desire, but you do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. When you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Come near to God, and he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Amen. Recipe for a community full of disorder and every evil practice. First, take a few people with large egos who boast that they are wise and know everything. Next, mix in the rest of the group one at a time while seasoning generously with bitter envy and selfish ambition. Stir everything together well and put it on the stove to simmer. It will be ready when everything boils over. You know, I hate to say it, but there are workplaces that are like this. People talk about office politics, but sometimes it's office guerrilla warfare. This may even be one of the reasons why after a year of working from home, so many are hesitant about returning to the office. To find peace requires wisdom, and wisdom is often in short supply. James says that the truly wise and understanding show it by their humility and good deeds. The actual wise person is not the egotistical individual in the corner who knows a lot of secrets. Wisdom is not found in accumulating arcane facts. Wisdom is revealed in character. The two cannot be separated. We know if a person is wise by how they behave day in and day out. Humility is an essential part of that. But of course, as usual, I have to explain the word humility because it's not something we think of very positively. And to make matters worse, this same word in Greek is often translated as meek. And we definitely don't like meek. We immediately picture the meek as someone who is timid and afraid. We see in our mind's eye a skinny, pale figure with no muscle tone gazing down at the ground with their eyes. But that's not what this word means. This is the strength and grace of a very strong man or woman who are comforting a very fragile young child. This is self-restraint. The ability to strike back is there, but the choice is not to. This is the power of an individual who faces his or her enemies eye to eye, but does not accept the brutal words that are designed to humiliate and destroy as true, and who also does not stoop to their level and return abuse for abuse. We have only to think of Jesus standing before Pilate and Herod to know what this kind of humility or meekness is. The wisdom that comes from heaven is not only humble or meek, however. James goes on to give us a number of attributes. Wisdom is pure. There is no guilt. There's no corruption at all. Wisdom is peaceful. It is in the very nature of wisdom to make peace. Wisdom is gentle. Here, the translation is a bit misleading again, however, because we think of gentleness as a soft attribute. We say things like, she was as gentle as a lamb. But that's not really what this Greek word means. What this word means is the kind of person who keeps the spirit of the law and is not overly strict about the letter of the law. It means to be truly fair, taking into account all mitigating circumstances. This word is about justice with mercy. The next verse says that wisdom is submissive. Like the word gentle, here I really do want to pick a bone with the NIV in their translation. I do not like this rendering at all, because in English, submissive gives the wrong impression. We think of someone as submissive who is entirely passive and does whatever they are told. But what this really describes is a person who is reasonable and open to others. They are easy to get along with. They are predisposed to think well of people as opposed to think ill of people. They give people the benefit of the doubt. This is not that the person cannot recognize evil. James is not advocating spiritual blindness, but James is describing someone with an even temperament who listens to people and wants to understand them. James is describing a good friend. God's wisdom is also full of mercy, ready to extend grace and forgiveness. And wisdom is impartial. What is wrong, and what is right, regardless of who is involved. There are no favorites to excuse, and there are no enemies to target. And finally, wisdom is without hypocrisy. Wisdom doesn't put on a false face. The wise person is sincere and genuine. By way of contrast with this beautiful picture, we have what is so often the case, conflict. James asks where wars come from, and then he proceeds to answer himself because, of course, he was being rhetorical. They come from the fact that we want something. Generally, what we want is something physical and material, but sometimes people do seek just power alone. If we can't get it, we set out to destroy whatever or whoever is in our way. We lust, kill, covet, and make war. We become hedonists, living only for what pleasure we can get. We don't get what we want, says James, because we don't ask God for it. But it's not as simple as that, because God will not give us everything we ask for. Some things are bad for us and bad for others. God does not answer selfish prayers, at least not in the way we want God to answer selfish prayers. But by selfish prayers, I do not mean praying that a loved one be healed, or praying for a better job, or praying for dinner to be provided. What I mean is praying for a $1.4 million Ferrari, or praying that we will win a prize so that we can lord it over everyone else around us, or praying that a competitor drop dead. Praying that you don't get caught committing adultery also does not work. We don't give our kids everything we ask for, and God does not give us everything we ask for. James concludes by directing our attention to the spiritual forces at work behind our struggle. The devil is a divider. The devil delights in causing chaos and hostility. We are tempted to act wrongly, and we give in to that temptation. James says, "Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you." Here, the word submit is accurate. It is, in fact, a different Greek word. Submit is a word that refers to rank. A common soldier is far lower in rank than a general. A soldier submits himself or herself to orders from above. We place ourselves fully under God's authority and seek to obey God's commands. And when we do so, we also come under God's protection. The enemy is like a wolf who picks off sheep who wander. Sheep who stay close to the shepherd are kept safe. Resist is an equally important part of the equation. It is to stand directly opposite and against something. This was originally a military term in ancient Greece. This is oppositional defiance for God. In 1940, the British and Allied forces were trapped by the Germans on the beaches at Dunkirk in France. Navy ships could not get to them because the bay was too shallow. So the word went out, and hundreds of small vessels, fishing boats, and ordinary shipping vessels, and leisure craft, the boats that were run by ordinary people, went and answered the call. And these ordinary people performed a miraculous feat of evacuation under fire. They got 338,000 men to safety. It was then that Winston Churchill declared in the House of Commons on June 4th, 1940, "We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender." We must resist evil with that much passion. When we resist evil and come near to God, God comes near to us. It takes wisdom to create peace, and our world is greatly in need of peace. Our families need peace. Our churches and communities need peace. But it begins with each individual making a choice. We create a better world when we live God's way, and we put ourselves in the devil's hands when we do not. To close today, I share with you a story from our ancient Christian forebears, the Desert Fathers. Once upon a time, a king had a great highway built for members of the kingdom. After it was completed, but before it was open to the public, the king decided to have a contest. He invited as many as who desired to participate. The challenge was to see who could travel the highway the best. On the day of the contest, people came. Some of them came in fine chariots. Some had fine clothing, amazing hairstyles, rich food. Some young men viewed it as an athletic event, and they ran the whole road. People traveled on the highway all day, but each one, when he arrived at the end, complained to the king that there was a large pile of rocks and debris at one point on the road, and it got in their way and it hindered their travel. At the end of the day, a lone traveler crossed the finish line wearily and walked over to the king. He was tired and dirty, but he addressed the king with great respect and handed him a bag of gold. He explained, "I stopped along the way to clear a pile of rocks and debris that was blocking the road. This bag of gold was under it all. I want you to return it to its rightful owner." The king replied, "You are the rightful owner." "Oh no," the traveler said, "this is not mine. I have never known such wealth." "Oh yes," said the king. "You've earned this gold because you won my contest. He who travels the road best is he who makes the road smoother for all who will follow." Amen.